Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto, where we take the markets one leg at a time while keeping the market cycle in mind. We got a market cycle to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a while since my last video, but not a whole lot has changed, although a whole lot of things have happened. And we've covered every single bit of it in the Power Hour. If you're interested in the Power Hour and how we view the markets here, I'll go ahead and click on the Services tab on my website here, and you can check out some of the details here about the Power Hour. Now let's talk about the markets right now and what's actually happening in a little crypto called Ethereum, and then we'll talk about BTC. We'll talk about some of the other coins, but we've been looking at this Ethereum setup now for several days. If you go back to the daily chart in Ethereum, we actually have, there you go, we actually have a quite large pattern. This particular pattern, I've got a lot of things drawn on that particular chart. So we have quite a large pattern here in Ethereum, and we've been talking about a breakout in Ethereum here for a while in the Power Hour, and we had an alert last at 183.35, which triggered a few days ago based on some of this price action. And today you're having Ethereum lead the market with 5% up. We've been discussing this in the show lately, and just it's kind of been an overt strength, or not really an overstrength, but an undertone of strength of Ethereum just the past couple of days. Ethereum has actually been extraordinarily weak for the past, several weeks, month or so. And we've been discussing that and kind of really didn't like it at all. But it really shifted and relatively quickly, and it started to form one of our patented curls here, and it's really remained above the curl, and now finally expanding out with a pretty big day so far. As you guys know, earlier today in Ethereum, we kind of had some issues with this curl, but we bounced out of it, really quite nicely, better than what I wanted, but I couldn't have expected it, and it's just really performing quite nicely. So let's talk about Bitcoin, and then maybe we'll come back to Ethereum and what this green line is right there. All right, so talk about Bitcoin. Let's take the bigger picture perspective. We've got Bitcoin in a very large, I have it right now on Coinbase as a descending triangle, and I actually have it on Binance, which is there, in a symmetrical triangle. The Bitcoin pattern currently is bullish. Reason it's bullish, if you haven't been paying attention, is because this is a bull flag of sorts. This particular one is a, as we said, symmetrical triangle, and then you have the declining declining pennant here on Coinbase. Now, the Coinbase chart isn't nearly as bullish as the Binance chart. The descending triangle, actually, if you flip that, the ascending triangle is the more bullish of the two, but a descending triangle, by definition, is not bearish per se. So this can easily break out to the upside. And the fact that we have two triangles or two bear flags, regardless of what shape this takes, is pretty bullish. Another thing that's bullish is on the daily chart, we do have a little bit of selling that has stepped in recently, but the price action has gone pretty flat. One thing we've been discussing is the fact that we have been able to hold higher against the top trend line, and we stay here for longer than we have against the bottom. So it's really been on the right side of the chart. Over here early in the chart, we were oscillating between the highs and the lows. Spent some time up here, came down, spent a little bit of time down here. Now we're kind of poking up against this upper trend line, and that's what we're looking for a potential much larger breakout in BTC. But I will say, what's been happening lately in Bitcoin has been giving some of the altcoins a chance to potentially break out, and we're looking, at least over here, Real Crypto, we're looking for maybe a rally in, maybe not all of the altcoins. We're not going to get an insane altcoin rally, but at a minimum, we're going to get a nice rally out of some of these altcoins. How long and how far, no one can really determine that. And you just kind of have to go with the market in these situations, okay? So if Bitcoin goes, flat to sideways down over the next several weeks, that's going to give all these altcoins that you see here in green a chance to really pump and have some life. And they can be some tremendous pumps. We've seen Ethereum do huge moves when Bitcoin goes sideways. And with Ethereum taking leadership, I'm just super bullish on Ethereum. So speaking on Ethereum, let's go back and check it out. All right, wrong chart. Okay, so let's take a look at that green line right there. So this green line is basically a measured move from the lows here to the top of this whole declining wedge pattern. If you move that up, and the reason this is moving like this and expanding and contracting is because I have a logarithmic scale on my chart down here. If you take log off, this line's not gonna change. So anyway, so log scale chart for this particular one, but regardless, the reaction is the same. We have a target of about $455. Now you're likely, it's not going to be a straight run up to 455 bucks. If you notice this run up, you have a couple of very nice legs with some pullbacks in between. But if you are able to get into Ethereum or have already gotten into Ethereum and really want to swing trade this, I think that the Ethereum trade is probably one of the safer trades. And as long as Bitcoin doesn't proceed to fall apart or break out into new highs, recent highs at least, you're probably going to see a pretty nice run in Ethereum. Now, you guys have heard me say in the past, when Bitcoin rallies, it doesn't really pull back too often. Here's a decent example. You had a little bit of a pullback right there, but it was very short-lived, and then maybe a little pullback there if you consider that a pullback. But when Bitcoin, is in bull mode, it doesn't pull back. So we don't pull back here, and Ethereum can do very similar things. So Ethereum here may not pull back a tremendous amount. If you get a consolidation and you haven't taken an entry point yet in Ethereum, that may be your clue to take an entry point. So, do with that what you will. We talk about it every day in the show. So if you guys want a little bit of guidance, feel free to check out the website there and sign up for the Power Hour. But yeah, so we discuss this every single way, the leg up, and so far this is actually behaving, like I said earlier, better than I would have anticipated. Now we were doing the show, it starts at 9 o'clock and the show was right here. This candle hadn't fully formed, but what had happened is we popped up, we formed a little flag, an overt selling candle. What I discussed is that sometimes when you get these situations, these really big selling candles, it looks pretty scary. Some people may want to sell, and that's really what the powers that be want you to do. They want you to sell so that they can get in. But how you can avoid that is by noticing that what happened here is that nothing was really broken. Your prior low, which is a very, very minor low, was barely touched and pretty much bounced right away. And what I was saying is that if this goes sideways and goes up, ideally respecting the curl. If the curl gets respected, that's a very bullish sign. And I wasn't quite expecting this to happen, but look what you get. You get a very bullish signal, excellent volume coming out. And the daily chart, when we were doing the show, as a matter of fact, we were way down here under this green line. We were down here. It was looking like a major topping candle. It came up to about here, and we were about here. Then we started rallying a little bit. But what I said was this could be a topping candle because volume's probably going to be pretty high. And so it goes bullish and reverses all of that, quote unquote bearishness in the chart. So it was flashing a spinning top or a bearish topping signal, and then that's reversing into a very bullish signal for Ethereum. So ideally we can hold up here and we can just start stair-stepping higher. That would be the ideal situation for Ethereum and BTC. So in the much bigger picture, it does look like there is still a pretty good potential for my last video, which talked about a much larger run in Bitcoin. I said my last video, I talked about a scenario where we were much more like early 2013 than later 2013. I know it's been a very long time since my last video, but you can see I talked about this scenario here versus this later 2017 scenario right there. So that situation still hasn't completely resolved itself. We don't know if we're going to go into a crazy parabolic uptrend such as this, which it's probably not going to, this is such a crazy move. Like these two moves are just insane. Nothing moves like that once it's a fairly mature market. And I would argue Bitcoin's fairly mature at this stage. But if it does go into an egregious uptrend, don't count it dead until it's dead. Or do we go into a more measured upward trajectory, kind of like we did out of the later 2013. So obviously this was 2014, 2015, 2016, but we did top in 2013. So I call this later 2013 and I call this early 2013. So we did end up, having a tremendous rally. It just took longer. And in the end, it comes down to the time frame. So, and the difference is this. The difference is that when you burn brightly, like, this is burning very brightly. When you burn brightly like this, it takes a long time to flame out. Okay, so we burned fairly brightly here, and it took a while to flame out, but we did come back relatively nicely. And we have been discussing in the show, I think we had an episode last week, maybe the week before, we discussed, were we in this type of a situation here or this type of a situation here? And the problem is there's a little bit of similarities with both of these particular setups. Okay, there's actually even a minor similarity with us being here, potentially taking us lower out of Bitcoin. So it's a little bit interesting to see where we are right now. The real telltale sign, though, is going to be the breakout, and that's really what we look for every single day, and what we watch for is the bigger breakout of this pattern. And everything is conjecture, everything is academic until the actual movement happens. When the movement happens, and it's hard to second guess it. You kind of just have to go with it at that point. But we're not at that point yet. We're still waiting. We still have time within this formation, and even if we expire in time, there's still a possibility of us to go sideways in the pattern for a while. So the saga of Bitcoin may not be quite over as soon as a lot of people are expecting. Bitcoin's going to do things on its own time frame. There's a lot of talk of Box going live here very soon, and that may or may not do anything for the Bitcoin chart. It really may do nothing. As it's already done nothing for the Bitcoin chart. Nothing does anything for the Bitcoin chart. Bitcoin moves in when it wants to. If you're a newer trader, you probably don't know that. If you're an older trader, you've probably heard me say that several dozen or hundreds of times. So Bitcoin's going to move when Bitcoin moves. You can try to guess when it's going to be. You can pick your level, but the only thing you can do actually is pick your level and move when the market tells you to move. Other than that, all you are doing is guessing, and you're probably just going to get into some kind of trouble, unless you're just going to hodl that position forever. So interesting update on the markets here. Like I said, I know it's been a while, guys, but we do have Bitcoin coming to hopefully some kind of an equilibrium, and which does lead to price movement in one direction or another, and that may be coming up soon. But the major story here, which is I think the reason why I'm making this video right now, is this much larger pattern in Ethereum. And we now see increasing volume and large breakouts out of some levels that we've been watching for a while. And it's really been bullish. And I'm so glad we're following through today. So that does bode very well for the market. So Ethereum breaking out, good stuff. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me. If you're seeing this video for the first time, or even if you're not, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Check out my website, real-crypto.com. And if you want some guidance every single day, we do the market 7 days a week in the power hour, so we're very active. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.